All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. I'm excited to do this live. We're going to talk about how to make your first million, how to make your first $1 million as an entrepreneur specifically. And there's kind of three different paths that you can take that we'll talk about. We'll talk some pros and cons, but I wanted to do a training and a live that I've never really done before. And I feel like it's a huge milestone and number and marker that most people want to get to, right? Like, how do you make your first $1 million? What does that even mean? There's some misconceptions to that. So I'm excited to dive in. I know it's gonna take some time for people to join us live, but as you do, let us know. Let me raise my chair. It looks short on here. I guess the chair doesn't raise much more. Um, as you join, let me know where you're tuning in from. Where are you tuning in from? What city and state? Or if you're watching the replay, and I don't know, if you get value, like give it a like on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, but only if you get value, if you only if you get something out of it. All right. So let's talk about making your first $1 million. So what does that mean to you? I'm curious. Drop it in the comments for anyone watching. What does that mean? Making your first $1 million. So I wanted to dive into this because there's some misconceptions, and the reason why is because I had 9 failed different businesses consecutively from the ages of 18 to 27 years old. And then from 27 on, how old do you think I am? uh, from 27 on, my last 3 businesses have all hit 7 figures in sales. They hit $1 million in sales and more. So I thought, I talk a lot about franchises, but number one, franchising is not right for everyone. And there are actually other ways to make $1 million. And so let's talk about the different ways and kind of how you can do it. And I think that'll be pretty interesting. So again, the way that I wound up learning this was 9 failed businesses, landscaping business, clothing line, ebook publishing, all sorts of different oddball things, and kept failing. And I was chasing the money too. I was chasing the money. I wanted to make as much money as I could. I wanted to go on like fancy trips and buy nice cars. That was what was driving me and fueling me at that point. A little bit different now. I still like nice stuff, but yeah, harder to make a bunch of money when you're being fueled by kind of those things. And so, when I hit my first $1 million, I thought, oh, this was interesting because it wasn't what I expected it to be. And we're going to talk about that because actually, let's just dive into that part right now, which is, what does making $1 million even mean to you? And hello, C. Sexton from Chicago. Um, what does making $1 million even mean to you? Right. So for some people, it's you got $1 million as an employee, right? And that would probably happen over the course of a career. Not many employees, W-2, making $1 million, right? You have, and then making $1 million as an entrepreneur, right? But when someone says make $1 million, what does that mean to you? Do you think that that person's actually keeping the $1 million? Because there's a difference between $1 million in sales and $1 million in profit. And so when people say, "Hey, I always wanted to make $1 million," and then they like weave in the term millionaire with it, it's really weird because it doesn't make sense. As an example, my first $1 million that I made as an entrepreneur, we had about a 15% profit margin. So on that first $1 million, took home about 150 grand, right? Now, part of that was the nature of the business and the fact that there was a ton of overhead, a lot of employees, wasn't very active in the business. The business kind of ran without me. I was really at towards, I don't know, 6, 7 months in. At that point, I was really only working 5, 10 hours a week in the business. So someone may say, "Hey, I made $1 million." But did you? Did you make $1 million? You made $1 million in sales, but there's such a big difference. And then as another example, my last 1 million, I did about a 45, 50% profit margin. And so the question is, when you think, okay, I want to make my first $1 million, are you thinking that you want to make your first $1 million to keep, meaning that you get to make in terms of profit? or are you just wanting to make your first $1 million in sales? And if so, if you do want to make your first $1 million in sales, what sort of profit margin do you want? And so that's what we're going to talk about that and kind of break that down. And what's the quickest and fastest way for you to get there? Because you essentially have three options. You can, number one, let's talk about that first. You can start a business. I would say the quickest way to 1 million is probably starting your own business. That's probably the quickest way. But for some of you, it's not realistic. I was trying to make my first million starting my own business from scratch, right? It just wasn't able to get it to work, people. And I'll explain why I wasn't able to get it to work, because there's essentially 5 different components that you need in the business to make your first million, no matter what. No matter if you bought a business, no matter if you started a business from scratch, no matter if you bought a franchise, you need the same 5 components. So I was trying to make my first million from scratch, but if you're looking at the most direct path, right? Now, and actually, let me know in the comments, what is making $1 million to you mean? Do you, when you say that or think that, are you thinking profit or are you thinking sales? What are you thinking? Very curious. So if you're going, okay, I want to make $1 million in take home, then the question becomes like, okay, great. Well, what sort of profit margins are you expecting or projecting? Right. And based on that, if you're getting, let's say, 20% profit margins, which a lot of entrepreneurs would be happy with 20% profit margins, and you want to make your first 1 million, what is that? Is that 5 million? Am I doing the math right? 5 million times 0.2, that's a million. So in order to make your first 1 million in profit, if you were getting a 20% profit margin, you would need to bring in $5 million in sales. So then the question is, okay, fastest and most direct path would be to start your own business and to leverage your skill set and to be probably in a service-based business where you're leveraging your skill set, consulting, coaching, something where you probably don't have a lot of employees and you're probably mostly a solopreneur. So if you think about it, there's probably a lot of dentists, doctor, well, maybe not doctors per se, but high skilled people that'll make 1 million. So you could potentially start a service-based business where it's just like you and maybe one other employee, but you're probably going to be working a lot in the business in order to be able to take home $1 million. So I would imagine it's like, do you want $1 million and to work your ass off and to work like 50, 60, 70 hours a week? And if you didn't do any of the work, not be able to make money? Or would you prefer to make and have a higher profit margin? Or would you prefer a smaller profit margin, right? And but then have a team where the business makes money without you. Does this make sense? And so in order to make your first million, you really need 5 different things. Number 1 is you need an offer. You need something to sell, a product, a service, and you need something that people need. And people get confused with business all the time. This is what I got confused with business. I was so focused on, how do I make money? How can I make a couple hundred grand? How can I make $1 million bucks? Whatever it is. And then trying to figure out, how can I make that money? The best way to make money. Hello, Mario from Toronto. Hello, Michelle from New Jersey. So the easiest way, crap, I just lost my train of thought. What was I just talking about? Someone remind me. We were talking about an offer, something to sell, product or service. I'm convinced I'm ADHD, because I definitely just lost my train of thought on that specific point. While I wait, service and offering. Okay, got it. We were talking about service and offering. So, yes, you have to, got it. You're solving a problem. So the best way to start a business, And no matter what, and this is part of the advice we give our clients too, that buy franchises. Our core business is helping people acquire franchise businesses, whether a resale or start a new franchise from scratch. But it's, what is a problem you can solve? A bit making money in business is literally just solving problems. So as opposed to thinking, how can I make all this money? Just go out there and start looking at problems. And ideally, problems that you have a skill set in could be your fastest path. But it's like, what is a problem that people have? Let me solve it. So as an example, when I started making YouTube videos, I wanted to be a business coach. I did not want to. I started making videos on YouTube with the intention to create like a business coaching company. I didn't want to be in the franchise space, in the franchise coaching, consulting, brokerage, info space. I didn't want to be in that at all. That was not my intention or plan. I wanted to help coach people to grow their business. That's what I wanted to do. And that's always been my dream, is to have an online business way before franchising. Franchising was just like the vehicle. We're going to talk about that in a second. Because for some of you, starting a business from scratch, although it's the fastest path, it probably has the lowest likelihood of success. And man, I should make a video that has like a diagram of like likelihood of success and kind of proven versus like barrier to entry kind of. I think that would be interesting. What do you think? Let me know if you think that would be interesting. But it's basically, and Mario, I'll talk about that too, but it's basically just finding a problem to solve. So what happened was, people started, and this was back when I only had like 1,000 YouTube subscribers, maybe just a few hundred. People started emailing me and reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, we're trying to find a franchise and we need help. Like we want to buy a franchise but don't know which one to buy, or we're trying to do due diligence on a franchise and don't know which one to buy." And so over time, what happened is I started then coaching people, and I started to coach some business owners, some people who wanted to start their own business. I started to coach all sorts of different types of entrepreneurs, people that wanted to buy businesses, people that wanted to start franchises, people that had businesses. And as I got more and more people reaching out saying, "Hey, I want help finding, a franchise," I started to narrow down into and niche down into the franchise space because there was an obvious problem. People wanted help with that problem. So in your life, I want you to think about, what are some problems that I can solve? Or what are some things that people come to me for? So how can I monetize that? How can I make money off of that? That's probably your fastest path. The challenge is, and then we're going to get to the second thing that you need out of the 5 to have a $1 million business, whether profit or sales. The challenge is that starting a business from scratch offers you the highest degree of risk and the least likelihood of success. Why? Well, number one, I just made a video about this, about why businesses fail. Well, number one, most businesses are side hustles. And when you're not reliant on that business and you have a full-time job, there's no pressure. Like you don't have to follow through. Life's going to kick you in the teeth. You're going to get busy. And the likelihood is you probably won't follow through because there's not enough pain. That's why I actually think putting your back against the wall and quitting your job and putting yourself in a position where you have to make money is one of the best ways to go. Some of us thrive on pressure. There's that phrase: pressure can either make diamonds or it can burst pipes, right? Some people fold under pressure. Some are really good under pressure. For whatever reason, I'm just the type of person where the higher the amount of pressure and the higher the stakes, I just figure out a way to perform. Maybe it's the athlete in me. For some of you who may have been athletes, maybe that's what you need to do. You need to just put your back against the wall. So when my wife and I took 300 grand out of our house as a home equity line of credit to sign a 10-year franchise agreement and a 10-year lease that we personally guaranteed all of those things, all of a sudden in the 9 years of failed businesses where I wasn't following through, I was in now and I was scared to death, right? And so that helped a lot. And so the problem with starting your own business potentially is that it's a side hustle, so you just may not follow through and you have to figure it all out. It's not necessarily proven. This business now, this whole online business and us helping people acquire franchise businesses, my goodness, it's been so hard. It's been way harder than my franchises because I've been trying to figure everything out from scratch, right? And part of it is we're innovating and doing things very different than kind of the traditional franchise broker consultant model. And so it's been so hard to figure it all out. And logos, we went through all sort of logo, just the smallest things take so much amount of time. But again, probably if you're able to figure out the right offer and solving the right problem, boom. The second thing you need is you need the right messaging and the target market. By the way, if you guys are getting value out of this so far, if you're enjoying it, please hit the like button on YouTube if that's where you're watching. That would be super helpful. And as I'm going along, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. That's part of the reason of doing these lives so that I can, hit on any questions. Yeah. So you need the right message to the right market. So another problem that most people have is they just kind of start a business and they don't have the right messaging for the right target market. And I'll make it very simple for you. People make decisions for two reasons. Number one, either to avoid pain, or number two, to gain pleasure. And generally speaking, the avoidance of pain is stronger, right? Like if I stuck a needle in like a nail in your hand, you'd probably move at a higher sense of urgency to get it out than if I put $100 bill on the table across the room, right? So people just tend to want to be able to avoid pain. So in your messaging to your target market, you're wanting to understand what are their pain points. As an example, for a lot of franchise buyers or people that are looking to be entrepreneurs, it's like, hey, starting a business is confusing and overwhelming, and I really just don't know like what to do or where to start. That's a pain point. And so then the question is like, what's the solution to that pain point? And you want to speak to the people's pain point because people are busy. And so they're not going to be interested. It's not going to be hard to get their attention if you're not speaking directly to their pain or their desires. And you really have to do both at the same time. And so that's number two, right? That's number two. So number one was an offer. You need something to sell and you need to validate that the market wants it. Number two is you need the right message to the right market, to the target market, right? This is all about how you get to your first $1 million. Number three is then about lead generation and customer acquisition. So here's the challenge. Have you ever met someone who you thought that you were smarter than and they were more successful than you? Like either in the corporate world, like maybe you had a boss or you had someone that was higher up and you were like, I don't understand how that person's in that position. They're kind of a moron. Or they just don't seem that sharp, or they're not that impressive. Maybe not to sound too negative. They just weren't that impressive. You're like, I could do their job. I could do their role. And part of that is because what I have learned being a pretty analytical person is that the smarter you are, the harder it is to succeed as a business owner. Does anyone know why? I know there's like a delay. There's like a 30-second delay through the streaming platform. So I'll pose the question and let me know if you know why. What happens is that the smarter you are, the more ways you think about how it will not work. Sometimes folks that are a little bit more naive or not the sharpest tools in the shed or as detailed, yeah, Mario, perfect. Overthinking. It's a huge part of it. Because whereas like I've got a buddy that's built just massively successful companies, like 10, $15 million a year in sales. And like we have the same intelligence, but this dude just like nothing stops him. He doesn't overthink. He pulls the trigger right away. We're just wired differently. So I'm naturally at a little bit of I don't want to say disadvantage, but from a sales marketing standpoint, he's like already ahead. And so part of what you need to master, making your first $1 million is all about sales and marketing. All about sales and marketing is really essentially what it's about. Because think about it for a second. You could have the greatest service in the world. You could have the greatest product in the world, but if you're not able to get people to buy it and buy it consistently and buy it often and spend more money and increase the lifetime value, which we'll talk about, it doesn't matter how good the product is. I was just having this conversation with someone about Burger King versus McDonald's and what the best burger spot is. Quick pop quiz. What's your favorite? Like, I don't really eat fast food anymore. Actually, there is a spot that I like. It's not your traditional fast food, but like, what would you say is your favorite burger place? I got a McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. I guess what would also compete with that? I feel like Five Guys is a step above. Um, but out of those, who would you pick? Now, when I had this conversation with some people, a lot of people thought, "Hey, Burger King actually tastes a lot better. The flame grilled tastes better, like better quality." Um, Chick-fil-A or Cane's, right? Shake Shack, Michelle, that's mine. Shake Shack and Five Guys, boom. And I've been going harder on Shake Shack lately. Yeah, there you go. Um, so the interesting part is it's not the businesses that have the best product that makes the most money. McDonald's arguably has the lowest quality products. What has McDonald's been brilliant at? Sales and marketing. Sales and marketing, right? That's what they've been brilliant at. Ray Kroc was brilliant at um being a promoter. And so the better you are at sales and marketing, the better the quicker you're going to be able to make your first million. It's because it's all about sales and marketing. This is what I didn't understand the first 9 failed businesses that I had from 18 to 27 years old. You guys still haven't guessed how old I am. Um, I was so I'm a perfectionist, OCD, type A, so I'd want things perfect and I'm organizing, or I'd be trying to start a business and I'm like, "Oh, I know why it's not working. I'm not clear enough. I don't have enough clarity, and so I got to go organize my room. I got to go organize my desk. I got to organize all my files. And then once I have my files organized, yeah, then I'll be more organized and I'll be able to do this, and none of that matters. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. Hey, Mario. Hey, yeah, you hit it spot on. I am 35 years old. 35? Yes. I turned 36 in 2 weeks, a little bit less than 2 weeks. Good guess, Mario. Spot on. I shouldn't be graying this early on, I feel like. Um, but so it's all about sales and marketing. If there's one thing you leave this with to make your first million, it's all about sales and marketing. And that's what most smart people struggle with. And so either you have to get really good at it yourself, or or you have to partner and hire someone who's really good at it, and you have to hire your weakness. And this is why, for me, a franchise helped me so much, especially at that point in time. That wasn't the dream. Franchising for me was just a vehicle. I had a goal to, like, I wanted to do what I'm doing now, which is YouTube, have an online business. This has been my dream for literally 16 years now, since I was about 19 years old. I wanted to be doing this right now, like doing this live, talking about business. This was what I always imagined my dream life to be. And so for me, franchising was a stepping stone, because after all those failed businesses, it taught me, when I had the blueprint and the playbook to everything, I was able to just execute and get out of my way of overthinking. There were systems where things had to progress and move along. I couldn't overthink or not make a decision or procrastinate. People were waiting on me. The franchisor was waiting on me. We had to sign lease. We had to sign franchise agreement. We just had to step up and move it. And so, that really helped. And so, I even think for some people where your goal is to have your own business and you necessarily you're like, I don't know that I want to be in a franchise like long term. Cool. Use franchise as a stepping stone for yourself. Use it as a stepping stone to build the muscle and the identity of becoming an entrepreneur and get your first win under your belt. Then you can sell it, and then you can do whatever it is you want to do, or you can keep owning it, semi-absentee, put a team in place, all sorts of things. Tyler, what's up, man? So Shake Shack is actually corporate owned. They're publicly traded. They don't franchise. So I would say that they cost a few million to get open, because they usually go in very high population areas, and they're usually building from the ground up. So, like they're building to suite, meaning they're building their own, site. So I would say a few million, um, for sure. Michelle, hoping to start your franchise in 3 months. Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. Are you buying a franchise? Are you launching, or are you already a franchisee? Did you already sign a franchise agreement? Mario said, I've been overthinking for years and I've determined that starting a franchise will teach me a ton of stuff. And if I still want to do my own thing after, then I can exit and pivot to my own thing. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I think it's just a perfect stepping stone, really. At least that was my experience. It was a really good stepping stone. So, okay, let's keep rocking and rolling. So, we covered you have to have an offer, something to sell to make your first million. You have to have the right message to the right market, and then you have to master lead generation and customer acquisition. So we didn't talk about this a lot. I just went on a rant about sales and marketing, but you have to figure out how to get clients and customers, and you have to be able to do it at scale and systematically do it. The way that I built this business is I just kept making YouTube videos, and then I would drive people to my website, right? And say like, "Hey, come to my website. I got my free thing and come get it and enter your info." And you start building an email list. And so it's like, how can you start building a list and getting in front of people and capturing their information? And then you want to have sequences, like nurture sequences involved, and reach out to the people and see if you can help them and if their problem aligns with like what your service offers. And so this is one of the cool things about franchising is that most franchisors have that built out. They have the lead capture sequences, the opt-in pages. They know what works on Google Ads, or they know how to acquire customers. That's the whole point. It's a proven system, so they know how to generate sales and marketing. Or else you'll have to create it from scratch. So me and my team, like it was just me in the beginning. We have a team of like 12 people now, but in the beginning, trying to figure out how to build landing pages and the forms and how to tie everything back in, guys, is super hard. It's like a puzzle on the back end of everything that we have. It's very, very difficult. And so speaking of opt-ins, if you want to see kind of if none of you guys have ever grabbed any of our free stuff, I would highly recommend you do it so you can see what our lead sequences and how we nurture is and how that works and how you might be able to implement that in your business. So as an example, if you're interested in buying a franchise, right? Then go to franchiseempire.com, and then there's going to be something that says I'm interested in buying a franchise, and then you'll be able to click to get our masterclass training. All right? And you'll be able to enter your info and you'll see kind of how that process works. And if you're a franchisee too, we have something on there as well. You just click the button like I want to grow my franchise. And you'll see kind of how that process works. But you got to be able to learn how to acquire customers, and then you have to make sure you're doing it under the right cost per acquisition and you can acquire them profitably. How do you know that? How do you know which marketing channels even work or effective? Again, if you're doing it on your own and doing your own startup, you got to figure those things out. All right, we're going to move on to number 4 in just a moment. But Michelle said, let's see, discovery day next week, hoping to sign an agreement next couple of weeks, nervous but excited, leaving job at 20 years. Cool. Congratulations. The average franchise is a 10-year deal. Yes, it's a 10-year franchise agreement, but you can sell. So you can have a 10-year franchise agreement and then you could grow the business. And after 3 or 4 years, you can sell the franchise and you just transfer the franchise agreement to someone else is what happens. So yeah. Yeah, the fear of leaving job industry of more than 20 years. Yeah, it can be tough. Hey, my perspective overall is that you generally can always go back and find another job. That's kind of my perspective, like going full time, and then if you need to get a job again, you can. I know that's an oversimplification, but hey. In the meantime, let's see. What I'm trying to figure out like what are some of the problems that you guys are experiencing right now? Let me know in the comments. Like is it trying to figure out if you should like what sort of business you should start? Are you looking at franchises and you're having a hard time figuring out which is the right one? Or are you still trying to figure out if franchising is for you, or is it something that's due diligence related, or maybe you're starting your own business? Like, I'm curious. Just drop me like a quick line on what the biggest challenge or struggle that you're dealing with at this point in time, and like how would you want to solve it? All right, so let me know that in the comments. In the meantime, we'll move on to number 4, which is you have to have an ability to fulfill on the product or service. So fulfill. So you want to be able to fulfill on the product or service. So the question is, when you start your own thing, do you have how have you figured out fulfillment? How do you streamline? It's essentially operations, right? So when we bought into our juice and smoothie franchise, that was all figured out. How to make the smoothies. We got trained on it. Everything was there. We didn't have to figure any of it out at all, which was cool. So sometimes in the other businesses, I would maybe, I don't know, get a customer or whatever, but the fulfillment was getting tricky. So when I started my landscaping business, I didn't know how to fulfill. I started this landscaping business. I did a good job of sales and marketing. I got like a $4,000 commercial job. I was super excited. And it was like, I have no idea how to do this. It was like a dirt berm, and we had to put hay on it and all this stuff so that it didn't erode. And I didn't know how to do this. So I was like winging it, trying to figure it out and trying to go and source the straw and rent a truck to then bring it. Then I had to hire some buddies and pay them under the table to execute on it. But I was just trying to figure it out as I went along. And for my personality, it's very hard because I'm constantly thinking, questioning, am I doing it right? What's going on? All these different things, right? So you got to be able to fulfill, and you got to be able to do it well so people come back, because you can fool people once and maybe have a crappy product or service, but if you oversell it and then it sucks, then people tell their friends. And then, and the word gets out that the service isn't good, or you don't get any referrals, right? So you've got to be able to have a way to fulfill and do it in a way that's efficient and profitable. And the challenge sometimes when starting a business on your own is you don't know your cost of goods. You don't know how to do it in a way that's profitable or scalable, which is interesting. And then you need to be able to increase your LTV, which is your lifetime value of your customers. So your lifetime value is basically how much they spend times the frequency of spending. So how much people spend versus the multiply it by the frequency of spending. So if you get someone to pay you $500 a month for a service, and um, they pay you that all year, then and then they drop off after that. And on average, your lifetime value would be 6 grand, right? And so you have to figure those things out, increasing lifetime value, which is very important. So let's see. What did you guys say were some of your challenges? And we'll move on to the next one. Brian said D, all of the above. Okay, cool. Brian, you should so we closed the doors to we launched something called the Franchise Buyers Academy, which is pretty cool. Actually, you guys should go and hop on the wait list. Here, let me put this thing here. It's franchiseempire.com/FBA. So we launched this thing called the Franchise Buyers Academy, which shows you exactly how to make money owning franchises and really figuring out if this is the right path for you. We break down different industries, profit margins. We pull up FTD, show their sales, franchises that do high sales. How do you scale it? How do you fund it? Like the whole breakdown of like crash course on like, how does this all work? And what do I need to know? Like getting started to save my time. And so we launched it. By the way, when we launched it, it was $27 for this course. It's like 4 hours of content. It took me months to make. Right now there's a wait list, but I don't know when we're going to open it up yet. Again, I haven't talked to my team about it. But if you want to know how to make money owning a franchise and you've gotten value out of any of my content, then 100% you are going to want to get your hands on Franchise Buyers Academy because it's dope. It's pretty sweet, not gonna lie. And we've had over 100 people go through it. The reviews are insane. So you can go there, hop on the wait list, and then when we open it back up, you'll know. Let me take this off now. Okay. So, we had some more comments. Let's see. Oh wow, we got a bunch coming in here. All right, so I'm gonna hit number 5 in just a second. But let's go through some of these. So we got Biz. Biz? There's 2 eyes in there. You're going through a rebuild for your commercial cleaning business. I want to scale, step it up. I'm a part of a franchise, but would like my own. Okay, interesting. Very, very interesting. You probably have like a non-compete or something like that, though, right? Um, Sean, franchise versus acquisition, gap between ability to acquire SDE of 750 versus finding a franchise that can scale to that and how long they may take. Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. So I want to unpack that in just a second because originally this live was going to be about like the three paths: start a business, or buy a franchise. And I just realized that wasn't as exciting as the topic as and I could provide kind of as much value as how to make your first million. And to me, this felt more exciting and interesting. So my commitment is to start making content that I think is more interesting. Um, so I want to hit on that in just a minute, actually, because that's an interesting point. Um, Biz said trying to acquire a loaner grant for the next step in fulfilling business goals. I have a business plan. I'm 31 and have been in the cleaning biz for 4 or 5 years now. Okay, cool. Tyler, starting a franchise versus buying existing business. Boom. Yes, sir. Um, and then how do you find a franchise that fits your personality? It seems that every franchise is geared towards those who are good at sales or marketing or being a people person. No, there's some operationally based franchises out there for sure. There are some that's our team does that. I to try to sum that up in here is just it would be very difficult. But yeah, our team does that. Uh, when you work with our team, we do behavioral assessments, industry ratings, skills analysis, and then break it all down and then present like 5 to 10 specific brands that are aligned with your skill sets and what's available in your area, so on and so forth. Um, so but the gist of that overall is you pick a business. You don't even have to pick a more operationally focused franchise or business, but you pick one potentially that is, and then you just make sure you have a good hiring strategy to hire. Your first hire is a good salesperson, and you pick a business that has that structure, the structure of being able to support and hire a good salesperson right away. There's a lot of people that aren't good at sales or aren't people, but they're still successful entrepreneurs because this actually leads to point five. And then Sean, I'll come back to your how to make 750K. This leads to point five, which is hire the right people. So this is the perfect segue into it. By the way, if you guys are enjoying this, getting value, please press the like button on YouTube. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps to show the video to more people. I would really appreciate it. Um, and okay, so hiring the right people. So making your first $1 million, right? If you went as a solopreneur, went to do it on your own, you could probably slave away, work really hard, and do it. But the business is not going to make money without you. The key to building a sustainable business that can make $1 million or any amount of money is to hire the right team and people. And your first hire, when you can afford to hire, is always complementing your weakness or low cost activities. So in the beginning, as an example, in my franchise, we hired a shift leads. And the two shift leads became assistant manager, one wind up becoming the manager. That was partly because I wasn't experienced enough and knew nothing about the food business. At that point in time, I had not managed a team of people. I was a financial advisor, so I was used to kind of being on my own. I had coached some employees and stuff, but I wasn't used to people reporting to me, hiring people, doing all that stuff. So I didn't even know. So I made a mistake. I should have started my franchise from the get-go. First thing to do is hire a manager. First thing, I should have hired a manager. Who's someone that has a proven experience in the food business that I can rely on, that's run inventory before, that's done purchasing before, that's hired kids before, that's done scheduling before, and said I was doing all those things because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And generally speaking, the franchisor will give you the blueprint, but they're not going to tell you exactly who to hire, how to hire them. You could talk to other franchisees about that, which is cool, which I did not do. So it was another mistake. Stupid mistakes, stupid stuff. Remember, I was coming off of a lot of failed businesses. So I was fumbling around, not knowing what I was doing. But you want to hire your opposite first, right? So once I promoted the shift leads to manager and assistant manager, boom, I got the right people. I don't have to be there every day now. They're doing the schedule. They're creating it. They're making sure the store's clean. I'm not, I can go play golf and the store's still making money. Cool. Now, in the situation where you're thinking, I'm not really good at sales or a people person or so on and so forth, you're just hiring your opposite. So you're hiring a good person that has that. If you're really good at sales and marketing, you're probably not the best with details. And in order to stay aggressive on sales and marketing, you need to hire someone who can do operations or is detail oriented. That's the first hire that you want to make in your business is your opposite. So in this online business that I started, when I first started making videos like 3-4 years ago and starting kind of doing business coaching, which was like my first offer, um, I hired a VA, a virtual assistant, that American virtual assistant, basically like a tech operations person who's actually, she's still with me to this day, which is pretty cool. Maria. And she started to handle like the tech stuff on our website and sending out the emails and how to build the landing pages and how to build the website and all the kind of techie stuff that I didn't know how to do so that I could spend time on the calls with prospective clients, talking to them, enrolling them, and then actually fulfilling on the service. So that's one of your key things that you need to do in order to make your first mill is really bringing on the right team. And a lot of times people are scared to hire. So we just hired another full-time person, which it was scary. It was scary for it. Like hiring should be scary. It should scare you because I'm a big believer that fear is a good thing. Most people use fear as a way to let it stop you, right? You feel the fear, you get uncertain, you're like, what happens if I fail? And you let it stop you. But what most high performers, what I've learned and what I've experienced is they feel the fear. They're still scared their business is going to fail. They're scared it's not going to work, but they use that fear as a motivator to now drive them. So that's what happened to me, taking 300 grand out of our house in a home equity line of credit, and my wife like not being 100% on board with it. And so I was terrified, guys. So, and in that terror, I locked in and I honed in. I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful. And that triggered a certain action from me and mindset that it was like, we're not failing. We're not failing. And so hiring people in my business, there's times in this business where I hire someone, it's like, holy crap, I just took on the salary. And we're kind of at the point where it's like kind of risky to do this, but it triggers and it forces you to spend time on high leverage activities in your business. Because if you hire someone and you don't focus on high leverage activities that keep expanding the business, then you're not able to cover the cost of that individual. So it's all about hiring the right people. And I can do if this is an interesting topic, I can do like a live on how to hire the right people, behavioral assessments, skills assessments, the process we use, all that stuff. If that's interesting. If so, let me know in the comments. So, back to Sean's question around, okay, acquiring something that does 750 in seller discretionary earnings, which is basically, this was a point that I wanted to hit on earlier that I forgot, and then I got to go in 5 minutes because I have a physical therapy appointment at 6 o'clock and it's 5:45. Um, so profitability, profit means nothing. Actually, profit doesn't mean anything. Everyone thinks. And look, the name of our flagship product is called Zero to Profitable Franchise. Profit actually does not mean anything because profit is purely a term. And a business on paper may show that it's not that profitable, but it's just all about how things are built in. It's really about what the owner's benefit is. The example is a business can show 15 grand in profit on their profit and loss statement, right? You're like, oh, that sucks. The business is only making 15 grand a year in profit. Excuse me. But it turns out the owner's on payroll as a W-2 and paying themselves 100 grand a year on payroll through W-2. So that hits on the P&L and shows as an expense. Turns out the owner took a trip for 15 grand for a business conference, but combined it into a vacation. So was able to write it off, right? That's another 15 grand. Turns out they pay for their health insurance through the business. Let's call that another 10 grand a year. and they get that as a write-off. So now we're at what, 125 in expenses. And so the true owner benefit is the 125 plus 15, which is 140 grand, which is what one would say is SDE, seller discretionary earnings. That's like a crash course simplified way to think of it. So but like profit doesn't actually matter. Like in this business, what I showed in terms of profit, let's hear my profit and loss statement. I had a bunch of things that I did that I was able to write off in the business. Speaking of expensive trips, we took a trip out to like a business mastermind thing, combined it with a vacation. That was what we did. And I was able to write that whole thing off. Flew first class. It was dope. Paid for my wife to come out with us and for her to go through the business mastermind thing. It was incredible. We stayed like 3 extra nights and that was all write off. It was awesome. It was like great. So on my profit and loss, it doesn't show that I made that money that was spent, but it was an owner benefit. So in terms of 750 profit, well, you're probably going to have to, I mean, if you think that the average business, if it's a pretty well performing business, does what, 20% profit margin. So that's what, 3.75 million? Is that what it is? Times 0.2, 750. So you need a business doing 3.75 million in sales, which would be 750 in profit in theory, right? But here's the trick is that then the purchase price. So you're talking about, okay, you got 3.75 million. You probably got to have to put down at least 10%, 375 grand. Let's just go with the even number of 3.5 mil, right? And then you got to get a loan for the rest. And all of a sudden, let's call it, for the sake of easy numbers, you're paying $25,000 a month in your debt service. So that's 300 grand a year. And now your 750 SDE is actually only 450 that you're taking home because of the debt service. So that's where, you know, making an acquisition becomes tough. And now the numbers go up and up and up, where you essentially, if you're really looking at take home 750, now you're needing to buy a business that's doing, probably 1.25 a year in profit to be able to cover the debt service of the loan and then be able to actually put 750 back in your pocket. And then of course you got taxes and all those things. So we're not going to go down that rabbit hole and complication. Now with the franchise, it's really just about time to scale. So this is why on Sunday mornings, we send out our franchise newsletter, which is free. Hold on, let me throw up the banner for it. You can go subscribe for free, franchiseempire.com/newsletter. And so every week, our team puts together a franchise and shows the FDD and how much the average franchisee and top franchisees and low performing franchisees make, to show, hey, there are, like, we look at franchises that you got franchisees making 700 grand in profit. We just covered one the other day. And how much does it cost to get open? And these are actually things, Sean, that we cover in the Franchise Buyers Academy. I actually give the example. We go through retail franchises versus service-based franchises, and then I walk through the model and the finances of what it takes to open up like a retail concept that has a build out versus a service-based franchise that probably has lower cost. And then I pull up specific examples in the FDD of how much those franchises are making on average and what the potential profit margin are on those franchises. And then I diagram out how you scale that up into multiple units and then scale that up to a point where you're able to whatever the amount of income that you're looking to scale to, really. But my baseline, what I see is that typically a business needs about 3 years to hit maturity. Now, some of you, if you choose a business that has like real high market demand and you're really scaled at sales and marketing, maybe you're able to get it there quicker, but on average, 3 to 5 years is really, what it takes to get a business really operating kind of at full capacity. I say first year, if you're starting and you're starting a franchise, or I would say if you're starting a franchise, starting a business where you're putting a bunch of capital in, like first years, just get profitable, right? Just make some money. How much you make, who knows, right? So our first franchise, I didn't think we were going to make money the first year. I thought that it was a great location for 3 years and beyond, and I still had my full-time job, and so I didn't know if we would make money. I didn't think we would first year, but we wind up doing, I think, like 60K in profit that very first year. So I was like, oh, sweet. Okay, cool. We made money. Like we got something going here. And so first year, you just want to get profitable. Second year is you want to get the foundation in place. You want to get the right people in place. You want to get the right team in place, and you want to get the right infrastructure in place, right? So you're hiring, you got your salesperson, you got your admin, your ops, whatever. So you want to be able to scale properly. And then third year is like put your foot to the pedal, your pedal to the metal or floor or whatever it is, but you want to scale. Now you can now start running a lot more lead campaigns and really growing the business. And it usually takes time. You got to get out in the market, you got to build relationships. People have to know your name, you got to build up your pipeline, so on and so forth. So that's kind of my thoughts on that overall. Um, so for any of you that are remotely interested in a franchise and you got value out of this, I would highly recommend you go to the franchiseempire.com/FBA. It'll take you to the waitlist page for the Franchise Buyers Academy. My goodness, that banner sitting up. I'm like slouching in my chair. Join the waitlist because when we relaunch it, it'll be somewhere between 27 and $50. It's a 4-hour course where I walk you through the whole thing on how to make money with franchise and the examples. It's incredible. It really is. So go sign up for the wait list, and then we'll let you know when we reopen it, because I think it'll help you a lot. And it'll answer a lot of your questions that some of you guys are asking. But all right, real quick before I have to go, Isha said, what's the best way to review the FDD? Yes, by an attorney, just a franchise attorney. If all you need is just an FDD review, you just hire a franchise attorney. Then they're like you probably pay them $2,500, $3,000 flat fee. And that's all you do. Mario's initial goal would be to replace current earned income and ramp up from there. Yeah, 100%. Good strategy. Hiring tips would help. Next live. Michelle, I got you. Cool. Awesome. And then Y Jones said analysis paralysis, which is the best thing. I mean, it's like the most obvious and stupid answer, but analysis paralysis is solved by action. Here's what I'll leave you guys with is that, for a long time, here, I'm going to switch this up. Boom. For a long time, I was so scared of failure and the embarrassment that would come with failing and, potential loss of money. And ironically, those things still happened. But here's the thing, guys, failure is a prerequisite to success. You must fail. You have to fail. I don't know any entrepreneurs that have not failed at some level. Could be micro failures. One of my buddies, so this guy, he recently sold his company for 10 million bucks. Like 10 years ago, like 10, 11 years ago, he filed bankruptcy. I'm not saying you're going to file bankruptcy. That's like the extreme case, but like failure's a part of it. I've lost thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in business ideas and doing things, but it all stacks and builds. So if the longer you try to avoid failure, you also avoid success. By avoiding failure, you avoid success. Because here's the analogy that I'll leave you with. Let's say two people are going, let's say we're both lining up to start a race, right? I like to do Spartan races. You see these medals, that's from doing Spartan races, which is obstacle course racing. So you're jumping over stuff, climbing under barbed wire, monkey bars, picking up 100-pound stones, like cool stuff. I love it. I'm crazy. So let's say that we're both about to start, right? And then they're like, all right, go, race. And let's say you're standing there and you're like, all right, I got to figure out, you see the obstacles ahead. You're still at the starting line. You're like, let me map this out first. Like, let me see kind of how other people are doing it so I can kind of get a gauge, and then I'll kind of start running. Meanwhile, me or the person next to you, you're like, screw it, I'll just figure it out. And I start running and I'm tripping and I'm falling and I'm getting bruised up and I'm embarrassing myself and I'm failing forward. But guess what? I'm still ahead of you in the race. And that's the analogy, is the people who just get started and learn from the failure and start getting the failures out of the way are the ones who win. And when you're standing there at the starting line, you haven't even entered the game. You haven't even started the race. And unfortunately, for most people, they die with their dreams still in them because they never go for it. They're still at the starting line. Don't be one of those people. The feeling of regret weighs much more than the feeling of failure. Like the laying in bed at night thinking, I never went for it. I never figured out what I was made of, what I was capable of. And that's key. And so going back to pain and pleasure, if you can associate more pain to doing nothing, to not taking action, to not taking the risk, to not starting the business, if you can associate more pain to staying the same and not changing, then to the possibility of discomfort and fear of what will happen if you start the business, boom, that's when you position yourself. And that's when everything changed for me, when I was able to consciously reverse the pain versus pleasure. So, my pleasure. Thanks for staying on. Thanks, Sham, for that comment. You guys are awesome. I love doing these lives on Thursday, so I'm going to keep doing them, trying to make them as exciting and interesting as I can. And yeah, just appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Peace.